Imagine taking a job to clean an abandoned house and finding out a serial killer was living in the basement. This happened back in 2016. I was in college at the time, living off campus with my roommate Josh. We were broke, like surviving on noodles and gas station snacks kind of broke. So when this cleaning company posted a job to clear out an abandoned house for renovation, decent pay, 2 to 3 weeks of work, we jumped on it. The place was about 30 minutes outside town. Huge, old mansion, the kind you'd expect to see in a horror movie. We met the new owners the first day, an older couple. They'd just bought the house from an estate sale and were planning to fix it up and flip it. They gave us the keys, some basic instructions, and left. The place was a wreck. Dust everywhere. Cobwebs, broken furniture, old newspapers from like 2003. We started with the upstairs rooms and worked our way down. Nothing weird at first, just junk. But then we hit the basement, and that's where things changed. The moment we opened the door, we could tell something was off. Unlike the rest of the house, the basement wasn't dusty. No cobwebs. The floor looked swept. There was even a faint smell of air freshener. Someone had been down there, recently. We went further in and found this side room, kind of hidden behind a shelf unit. Inside, there was a bed, clothes everywhere, weird paintings on the walls. It looked like someone was still living there. Then we opened one of the drawers, and it was full of knives. Not kitchen knives, all different kinds, like someone was collecting them for something else. Josh backed out immediately. I just stood there, staring. It didn't feel right. We didn't touch anything, just locked the basement and called the owners. They told us nobody had been in the house for years. They seemed freaked out too. Next thing, police show up. They go down there, take a look, and that's when everything blew up. They found a hidden crawl space behind the far wall in the basement. Inside it were bones, human remains, multiple people, some wrapped in plastic, some not. That same day, the place got locked down as an active crime scene. Josh and I were questioned for hours. They checked our phones, our IDs, everything. We didn't know anything. We were just there to clean. Turns out that basement was being used as a hideout by a serial killer the police had been tracking for years. The crazy part? He didn't own the house. Nobody knew he'd ever been there. They figured he'd been squatting there long after the previous owner died, just moving in and out when nobody was watching. He had keys, or maybe he picked the locks. Nobody knows. The cops told us to stay put while the investigation continued. But then, something happened that made it personal. 3 nights later, I came home and found our front door open. Our apartment had been ransacked, but nothing was stolen, not even our cash. On the kitchen table, someone left a knife, one of the same types we saw in the basement. I didn't sleep that night. Josh wanted to leave town immediately, but the cops were already watching us, said they were working on leads. We moved into a hotel. The cleaning company paid for it, but we still felt watched. And then came the CCTV footage. One of the neighbors near the mansion had a backyard camera. It caught someone, a man, coming out of the woods behind the property, 2 days after the house was sealed off. He was wearing gloves, a black hoodie, and a mask. He looked right into the camera, like he knew it was there. Cops circulated the footage, and that's how someone recognized him. He was a former construction worker, had done renovation jobs in the area years back. No record, no red flags. Until they searched his old storage unit. Inside were more bones. We found out later he'd been using multiple abandoned houses across state lines. The mansion was just one of them. When he realized it had been sold, he tried to go back for something. Maybe evidence, maybe a weapon he forgot. That's when we walked in on it. They arrested him about 2 weeks later. Apparently he had a list with our names on it. Me and Josh, both our names. Police said if we hadn't called when we did, there was a good chance we wouldn't be here right now. He was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to death. They're still trying to identify all the victims. Every time I think about that house, that room in the basement, I wonder how many people saw something weird and didn't say anything. All I know is we got lucky, really lucky, because we were never supposed to find that room. My sister dated a serial killer that almost took her life. You should listen to this story because the person you trust the most might not be who you think they are. This happened back in 2022. My sister Haley was 19 at the time. I was 24. She'd just started dating this guy named Leo. He was 22. Seemed like a solid dude. Polite, funny, kind of quiet, but always respectful. My mom loved him. Said he was one of the good ones. Even my dad liked him. And he's not the easiest guy to win over. It was her first real relationship. And from the outside, everything looked perfect. But the truth is, none of us really knew him. It was a Sunday night when things changed. We were all sitting at the dinner table. Nothing unusual, just talking and eating. Then Haley's phone buzzed. She looked at it and suddenly got up. Said Leo had just texted that he was in pain and couldn't move. Something about his stomach. She read the message out loud, and I remember how worried she sounded. She told us she was going over to check on him. I asked if she wanted me to come with her, but she said no, just told me not to worry and left. At first, nobody panicked. She was 19. We figured she'd sleep over or maybe they went out somewhere. But by the next morning, we still couldn't reach her. Her phone was off. And that's when my mom started losing it. She tried calling Leo. He picked up right away. He said Haley never showed up the night before. Said he had no idea what we were talking about. He sounded too calm. He said maybe she went to hang out with friends or something. But that wasn't like Haley. She never turned her phone off. She always let someone know where she was. And this just felt wrong. The police got involved pretty fast. They took down the details, asked about the message, and immediately went to question Leo. He told them the same thing he told us, that he never texted her, never saw her that night. And because they didn't have proof, they couldn't do anything. Those next 2 days were the worst of my life. We printed out missing person flyers, posted online, called every friend she had. Nothing. We didn't sleep, barely ate, just sat around waiting for a call. Then on the third day, something finally broke. The police got a warrant to search Leo's house. I went with them, but we had to wait outside. I'll never forget the way my mom clutched my arm the whole time. She knew. Somehow, she already knew. About 20 minutes in, we heard shouting. A cop ran out calling for backup. They found her. There was a hidden panel in the basement wall, and behind it, this tiny room, almost like a closet. That's where she was, tied up, duct tape over her mouth, barely conscious. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, eyes barely open, like she'd just been left there to rot. She was in that room for 2 whole days. Later, she told us he was waiting for things to calm down before he was going to kill her. Let that sink in. He was just waiting. They rushed her to the hospital. She had bruises on her arms and wrists, burn marks from the ropes, but she survived. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. While they were clearing out the backyard, cadaver dogs started reacting. They dug up 6 bodies. 6. Not just women, it was a mix. Teenagers, older men, even one that looked like he could have been someone's granddad. They were buried like garbage, lined up near the back fence. All of them had been reported missing between 2016 and 2019. After that, everything moved fast. Leo was arrested on the spot. He didn't fight it. He actually confessed, told police where to find all the stuff he'd kept, trophies from each victim, bits of jewelry, a wallet, a child's keychain, random creepy things. He had this small wooden box in his closet with labels on each one. He had a label for Haley, too. He was sentenced to death last year. They say justice was served. But honestly, I still have nightmares. If Haley hadn't read that message out loud, if the police had waited one more day, we wouldn't have found her in time.